Greetings, BlazeLeeDragon here, and today I am going to talk about Taoism. Now, Tao. So what is Tao? Tao is pronounced the same whether you spell it with a T or a D. Some people will call it Tao with a T and Dao with a D. However, that's incorrect and inaccurate. It's actually Tao regardless. Not quite a D, not quite a T. It's, Chinese. Now, Taoism itself was credited to have been discovered by Li Er. Li Er is commonly referred to as either Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu. Aha. Sorry, mispronunciation. Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu roughly translates into venerable teacher. But his given name was, his family name was Li, and his given name was Er. So Li Er is Lao Tzu. Now, he wrote a book called the Tao Te Ching, which is pretty much kind of like the guidebook to Taoism. Lao Tzu was also, at the time, there was Confucianism and Chinese folk religion. And a lot of Confucianism was believed at the time by many to have maybe missing some of the morals of daily life that should be included. So Taoism kind of focuses on a lot of that, looking at yourself and observing the world and your part in it. With Taoism, there are multiple ways of practicing, and we will go over some of the basics. This could be very, very long video. And it's going to be a little bit more in-depth than some of my other videos. It's going to tell you a little bit about practicing and about becoming a Taoist, as well as what Taoism is. Now, with Taoism, the other thing that I want to mention too is that it's a process or a path that can apply to other paths as well. You have different religions out there, and such as Christianity. In order to become a Christian, you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior in your heart, and you call yourself a Christian. Now, that doesn't make you a Christian priest, per se. Same thing applies to Taoism. There are Taoist priests and Taoist monks, however you want to call it, that focus, on Taoism and developing themselves, but there's also the Taoist, the individual who accepts Tao. Now, Tao itself is the way. That's roughly what Tao refers to, is the way. So when you are practicing Taoism, you're practicing the way of living, the way of life, and there's many ways to interpret this, and that's the big thing with Taoism, is interpretation and perception, and finding the answers for yourself. The Tao Te Ching and some of the main principles of Tao are to help guide you along your own path. So you can essentially become a Taoist just by calling yourself a Taoist. There's actually a website, WikiHow or something like that, that actually talks about different steps that you can do. And they'll mention Lao Tzu. They'll also mention another author, Qigong, who also writes some books on Taoism. Of course, they've been translated into English, so you don't have to speak Chinese or any. There's multiple dialects in China, but you don't need to speak any of them necessarily in order to practice Taoism, become a Taoist. Lao Tzu was alive. There's some debate, but it was right around 100 BCE. For those of you unfamiliar, BCE is before Common Era. CE would be Common Era. So 100 BCE. So roughly 2,100 years ago-ish. So a lot of his teachings have survived, and there's a lot of interpretations to the Tao Te Ching. I've actually have a book with me, which I've been reading through recently. Tao Te Ching, and of course they have Lao Tzu. And this is a translated version of the Tao Te Ching. So it's not going to have any of the Chinese, well, it's actually got some Chinese characters, but it doesn't actually put them in pinyin or anything like that. And it gives an interpretation of the way that the translator interpreted it. And it's good to read a couple of these. It's definitely good to research online too, and find out some ideas, talk to some other Taoists, get some other opinions. Another book that I really like is called 365 Tao, Daily Meditation by Deng Ming Dao. This is a pretty good book. I like that. And basically this just gives you 365 different mindful things. And if I could find it, I actually got one in here that I really like. It's about healing. And see if I can find it real quick. But basically what it says is, it says, fire cools, water seeks its own level, in time all things heal. And then it describes that and goes into some details about different things to contemplate. And the idea is to focus on these as seed thoughts during meditation. And I probably should have looked this up before I started recording, so bear with me for just a second, even though this is going to lengthen the video slightly. So let me talk about a few more things while I kind of thumb through this. I'm probably going to end up giving up here. Point being is, it is in here. It is very beautiful saying. So meditation itself. Now I've got some other videos on meditation, and I believe I have a 3-parter out there right now, and I might make one in the future, so I don't want to spend too much time on meditation. So let's talk about roughly what meditation is. Meditation is about clearing your mind and relaxing. So when you're trying to clear your mind and relax, how do you go about doing that? Well, the first thing you want to make sure you do is control your breath and your breathing. So you want to breathe slowly and relaxed and easy as if you're sleeping, but you don't want to focus too much on breath during Taoist meditation. A word on meditation. Meditation actually comes from India. You know, the Indians came up with meditation, and it's applied to a lot of different practices, beliefs, and practices. I believe even some of the Christians will call what the priests or the monks do meditation. The Druids are today, they're using the term meditation, and basically what meditation is, I mean, it's very universal, because a lot of different paths, such as Druidry, had what they called journeying inward, or looking within. And of course, you know, it wasn't in English. There's Welsh or Irish, some other languages that they use. So, you know, we of course would interpret it as journeying inward. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to find this section on healing. Anyway, it's a good book. You should look this up. So, but yeah, there's different interpretations for it. But meditation's become universal, and I'll continue to use it through the rest of this video, just for the simple fact that everyone's heard the term meditation. So it does apply to different practices that talk about breathing, relaxing, and looking inward, opening your mind. Meditation should not make you feel like you're falling asleep. So you shouldn't really... A lot of practitioners will say not to close your eyes. My master for the Shaolin arts actually says to me not to close my eyes either, just for the fact that you can fall asleep with your eyes closed. He'll say gaze off at a distance, like a point, maybe 90 degrees in front of you, maybe a quarter of a wall, and you're not really looking at it. You're kind of staring past it, so you're letting your eyes kind of just go blank as if you're not looking at anything. And the idea is to keep your eyes open, because if you close your eyes, your body wants to shut down and fall asleep. So if you keep them open slightly, and even if they're just barely open, you just want to focus on that. I do have a video talking about hood and long hair and things, and about how they can be used as a focusing thing because they block out the light and sound, but you're still looking. Those are very nice for meditation. So if you do own a hooded robe, cloak, jacket, it can be helpful if you want to wear that during meditation. It's traditional to... Wow, I'm saying a lot of uhs. Drives me nuts. A little pet peeve of mine is uhs and ums. I think it's better to pause. So hopefully I'll avoid future ums and uhs. With meditation, traditionally you sit in what's called lotus position, which, you know, you have your legs crossed. You're sitting on the ground. They sometimes will call this Indian position, because the Indians would sit this way. So, of course, the Indians invented meditation, so it makes sense, Indian style. Now, there's also the fact that it's about being comfortable. So you can sit up in a chair, you can put your feet flat on the ground. It's just be comfortable. Spine should be erect. You know, you don't want to be hunched over, and you don't want to be super erect. You just want to be held up, kind of like a string of pearls hanging, is the way that I've heard it interpreted many times. And that makes a lot of sense, because you want to be erect with it, not like straight, rigid. You just want to be up. So you want to be very natural. You want to be able to allow your chi and your blood to flow nice and evenly. And, you know, you can hold your hands up, palm up on your knees. You have them palm down. You can have them crossed. You lay them inside of each other with your thumbs touching, and kind of like this. I know it's kind of hard to see with off camera, but there's a couple ways to hold your hands. Point being is to be relaxed. And then you want to breathe nice and slow in through the mouth, out through the nose. If you know anything about meridians, touching the tip of your tongue up behind your teeth will connect your governing meridian from your, to your reception meridian. So there's the reproductive meridian that goes along the front, and the governing meridian goes along the back, and it creates a small circle of heaven and connects the two. So you can put your tongue up there. It's very good to do, and you want to breathe nice and slow and even. Some people count, some people focus on breath. But with Taoist meditation, you want to focus on looking inward in these concepts. We're going to get a little bit more into that. And I'm also going to talk about prayer beads. So these are actually a set that I made. I think they're cheaper to make. I think they usually run about 30 or 40 bucks fairly easily. If you go on eBay or the like, these I just went to a craft store and I bought myself some beads and I bought myself some string and I tied a little knot. We'll talk about this and what these are called and how to use them with meditation in a second here. So when you had, at the time, like I said, Confucianism was getting real big. So Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is basically, like I said, about what it is to be a Taoist and concepts and thoughts. So a lot of these have been cut down and interpreted to some main points in Taoism. And it is actually nice during meditation to either focus on one of these sayings or wisdoms and contemplate it. And this is a type of analytical meditation, which is also in Tibetan Buddhism as well. And of course, meditation, once again, applies to Buddhism. Buddhism comes from India as well. The Indians, Siddhartha came up with, Buddhism. We'll talk about that in another video. So a lot of what you're going to hear here can apply to other things. Traditionally, these beads are used by Buddhism. Sometimes they're called Buddhist beads. Originally, they were, once again, Indian as well, which is why we'll eventually make a Hindu video. The Indians came up with what's called mala beads, and they're usually 108 beads, and this here is 27. Online you can look up, sometimes it'll be 27. It doesn't really matter the number. I mean, you can have 10 beads if you want. What this is a counting device. So in China, for the relevance of Taoism, they're called shuju, which is counting beads. There's also nianshu. I did it again. Not shuju is the counting. Nianju, not nianshu, sorry. Nianju are prayer beads, which is the same thing. They're prayer beads, Buddhist beads, mala beads, etc. The idea is the Christians actually use this idea when they built their rosary. It's for counting each of your prayers or your mantras, your sutras, your seed thoughts for meditation. Excuse me. Allergy weather. So when you're using these, you're pretty much holding them in your hand or sliding them off. And your knot here, which I have, is, you just hold one of your beads, and then you can focus all of your attention on that specific seed thought, mantra, or meditation, and then, you cycle through it. So when you get done with one, you push up to the next, and then you just hold that, so you can focus all your attention on that without having to worry about counting. Like I said, traditionally it was 108, so with 27 strand beads, you would go through it 4 times. Some people will go clockwise and then counterclockwise back. Some will just go in one direction around 4 times. You can do it however you want. There's not a set way of doing it. So if you want to use beads to help you with your practice, you can, because repetition can help it to sink in and to really gain that to where it's, part of you with that wisdom. And you don't have to go, this way with your beads, where, you're thumbing them forward. You can thumb them downward as well. There's not, like I said, a set path. You can hold them in 2 hands and then pass it over, like this. So, you can do however you wish, however you're comfortable with. You don't have to use beads at all if you don't want to. It's just a nice thought to repeat one thing over and over again. So what sorts of things would you pray with or focus on for your analytical meditation and thinking and contemplation? There's also focused meditation where you just focus on one idea. Analytical is questioning, where you're thinking about and not sure, which is good. It's very good to be questioning. So what do you say? What do you feel? What do you think during meditation? Well, like I said, you want to relax and calm yourself. One thing that some Taoists recommend doing is actually saying pages of the Tao Te Ching. Now, you can say the Tao Te Ching in English. You can say it in Chinese or Mandarin if you can speak it, or whatever you choose to do. Sorry, my back is getting poked, and that's not gonna help any. Maybe I'll use my kicking shield. Much nicer. Okay, so, as I was saying, before I got uncomfortable and trying to reposition sitting on the floor here, so what are you focusing on during your meditation? With the Tao Te Ching, there are some seed thoughts that you can utilize from the book itself or concepts of the Tao period. So let's talk a little bit about what the Tao is. Then we'll talk about certain mantras or things that you can say during meditation if you so choose to do that. So what is Tao? Tao is the way, it's the path, it's life. And it's about interpretation. So like I was saying earlier, you don't have to be a Taoist priest. You can still be a Taoist or incorporate Taoism into your current practice. So, I mean, like I said, you want to go out, become a Christian, become a Christian. You want to go out, become a Taoist, you become a Taoist. Okay? So, start including Taoism. And this is how you're going to do it. You're going to look at the path by looking at life itself. You're going to look at your perception of the world around you. And then you are going to take your thought processes, and then you're going to reassess them by the 3 jewels of Taoism, the 3 treasures of Taoism, and then some of the states of Taoism. So let's talk about some of the states. Day. Day is basically the living Tao. It is part of all things. It is the virtue. It's the oomph behind life itself. So that's the part of Tao. Tao is part of all things. Then there is the concept of Wu Wei, which is without action, is roughly what it translates into. So Wu Wei, or Wei Wu Wei, which is action without action, is based upon the concept that all things are going to happen regardless. You don't have to focus your attention on the sun rising or necessarily breathing. You can take over your breathing, but it's going to happen on its own. So things are very natural. You want to let them happen how they're going to happen. One of the things that you can use, as I was mentioning during meditation, is one of the things that's in the Tao Te Ching is actually Wei Wu, air, Wu Bu Wei, which roughly, once again, translates into no action, but action will still happen. So that's one way of interpreting it into English, or the concept to focus on during meditation, is that the Tao does not need to act. However, the Tao will influence all things. And, right there, well, what does that mean? Find that meaning for yourself. Look at it. Interpret it. Sure, read other people's interpretations, but take it upon yourself to see what that means to you. What does each one of those words mean? So Wu Wei is very, very, very important for Tao. Now, there's also, during meditation, what you want to achieve is you want to achieve what's called the state of Pu. Pu, P-U, is basically the equivalent of uncut wood, naturalness, complete and utter naturalness, naturalness. You'll hear Bruce Lee. For those interested, his birth name was Saipan. I like knowing both. I like respecting the traditions and where people came from, but I could do a whole video on Bruce Lee. Regardless, you will hear him talk about naturalness. And what does that mean? It means to do what feels natural, what comes natural to your body and your being. So to achieve Pu, you lose yourself of all of these trappings of the media and teachings, and you just let yourself be. You sit and you breathe for a moment and just exist with no purpose, no rationale. You just are until you become so natural, you are undefined, which then defines you. This is achieving the state of Pu. It's an interpretation of how to achieve Pu. Like, once again, you'll have interpretations, which is good, and you want to develop your own. All things are based and colored by perception. So, Pu is very big for Tao. Then I also mentioned the 3 treasures and the 3 jewels. Let's talk about the 3 jewels of Taoism. Now, first and foremost, the 3 treasures and the 3 jewels, I've seen some that say they're the same thing in their interpretations. However, I've also heard them as being separate, and that's how I'm going to present them to you. The 3 jewels of Taoism are commonly translated into English as compassion, moderation, and humility. Now, you can have huge interpretations on what those mean, and you can say them in your mind or out loud, and I'll talk about that in a second, or chant them during meditation to really ingrain it in the brain. 3 jewels of the Tao: compassion, moderation, humility. And then you can also break it down and think of each one of what it means. So if you have compassion. What does compassion mean? One interpretation is compassion for all living things. If something is alive and it is hurting, you feel for it. Be compassionate. Next one, moderation. Taoists believe in enjoying life, living and experiencing life. Have sex, drink, just don't do it in excess. Be in control of yourself. Same thing, don't deplete supplies or take so much you injure or harm yourself. Take everything moderately. Same thing when you are taking any natural resources or taking too much free time or working too much. Moderate how you live your life so that you don't wear yourself out. Once again, interpretation that can be interpreted a few different ways. The last one, humility. Don't make everything about you. Don't be so arrogant or stuck up or drawn in. Be and realize that there are other things in the world and universe around you. The three treasures of Taoism is what's called Jing, Qi, and Shen. These are the three energies of the body, the mind, body, and soul. Jing is your body. It is your physical body. It's the natural talents you're born with. Qi is your internal energy, your willpower, your strength of mind. Your Jing energy, that's your blood. Your Qi flows along your meridians, kind of like spiritual bloodstream. Then you have your Shen energy. Your Shen energy is your mystical, magical power energy. The power of the soul versus, Qi being more mind, Jing being more physical. The Shen is that divine essence. So these are the three treasures of Taoism. And it's about respecting them and nurturing them and cultivating them through Tao, through the path, through realizing the path. So how does all this exist and play together? This is where you have Yin Yang. Yes, I said Yin Yang, not Yin Yang. Yin Yang would be Southern. Not picking on Southern folks, but a little bit of, accent there. Yang. It's Yin Yang. You'll have other interpretations. There are different dialects in China. You are more than welcome to call it Yin Yang. I know it as Yin Yang. And, well, I got a tattoo of a Yin Yang, so I'll show you my tattoo. We'll talk about it a little bit. So let's talk about the Yin Yang. So the first thing, this is a Taoist style Yin Yang, and you'll notice that Yang is on top, and it's a reverse S, and then Yin is on the bottom. You'll also notice that Yin has some Yang in it, and Yang has some Yin in it. And the Yin Yang, they're in perfect balance and harmony, and it looks like they're spinning. So, what does that mean? Okay. So, with Taoism, and there's other spiritualities and traditions that will look at the yin yang and have their interpretations. The idea is yin and yang are all forces in all of reality and all of nature, and they're always interacting, and this constant back and forth between them is what makes reality and existence. So we realize that there's no such thing as good or bad or good or evil or whatever the case may be. There are simply experiences, and then there are pleasant moments. So if something bad happens, no matter how horrible, there's always a balance. And if something good happens, there's always a balance on the opposite side. And no matter what, there's always going to be the other element. If you become too much yin, yang will start to show through. If you become too much yang, yin will start to show through. Let me give you a really twisted example of that. If you have someone who is a criminal and they are stealing, and you consider that to be bad, well, the good part of that, the silver lining, as they say, is that person's taking whatever they're taking to help themselves to live, so there is some life involved. And vice versa, you might be living and helpful and giving and always sharing and passing out money, whatever the case may be, you are losing. So there's the opposite side of that. Your stuff is getting taken away from you, you're wearing yourself down, you're spending time. So there's always a flip side to everything, and there's a balance. So always respect the forces. They always exist together, and there is a right and wrong, but it's about interpreting the whole, not just focusing on the one aspect. And this is one interpretation of yin and yang. These are balancing forces. They're in all things. See them how you're going to see them, but acknowledge them and know them. and know that there's no good and evil. So let's talk about Yang, the white one. Yang is masculine. Yang is expressive. Yang is expansive. Yang is light. Yang is in your face. And this can be bad, quote unquote, in the fact that it can be harmful and attack and burning, but it can also be expressive and love and outward, and just giving. So it can be both. Now let's take Yin. Yin is feminine. Yin draws in. Yin is negative. It attracts. It pulls in. It hides. It draws inward. And this can be good, sheltering, protecting, nurturing, but it can also be stealing and taking. And so there's both sides to both yin and yang. So these are just concepts to consider and be aware of. Now, that's kind of a basic overview of Taoism. So let's talk a little bit, like I said, about meditation and what you can do during meditation. There's many ways to meditate. This is just one method. As I was talking about with the beads, you can start with your string. Like I said, these I just constructed. I've got a stretchy cord in the middle and got my beads here so I can flip through them. So if you start at this, you don't have to look at your beads now. You can keep them in your lap. I'll hold them up here just a little bit just so you can kind of see how I'm thumbing through them. But the idea is, once you get all the way around, you feel it. So you've hit 27. So you can go back, and then back again, and then back again, and hit your 108 if you want to do that many. Once again, you can have 10, you can have 5, you can have 15, 30, whatever you want. Or you can just go one direction 4 times, or however you want to do it. So when you're holding one of these beads in your hand, you can sit here and think and focus on that one concept. So if you want to say something in your mind, you can sit here and think, hey, 3 jewels of the Tao: compassion, moderation, humility. Go to the next one. 3 jewels of the Tao: compassion, moderation, humility. Go to the next one. And like I said, you can say it out loud. You can ingrain it in your brain by doing it over and over again and feeling it. You can sit here and meditate and really focus on it. You can also chant. Chanting is just simply intoning. And you can do it in a deep voice. You can do it in a high-pitched voice. You can do it however you want. Whatever makes you feel calm and relaxed. So let's talk about a few of the Chinese words, which I personally find fun. Like I said, you don't have to say it in Chinese. You can say it in English. You don't have to say it at all. You can just keep it in your mind. So in the Tao Te Ching, 2 of the ones that really stand out to me, as I was mentioning Wu Wei, there is the saying in there, of course, Wu Wei, Wu Bu Wei, which, as I was saying earlier, has to do with there is no action, but action will still happen. Tao does not have to act, however, Tao will affect all things that happen. So you can chant that while you're doing it. Or one of my favorite, which I really like, is Jing Wei Tiang Xie Zhong, which roughly translates to, if you quiet and calm your mind, all things under heaven will fall into place. Jing, calm and relaxed, basically, mind. Wei, in this case, it's not like Wu Wei, where it's action. Wei is in also. And then there is, Tiang Xie, which is basically under heaven or under the sky or under the divine realm. And then Jiang, which is to complete or whole or perfection. So that's basically what it's taking. So Jing Wei, Tiang Xie Zhong. So you can count them while you're doing it. Excuse me. Or you can actually chant it if it is helpful and calming for you. So, you sit in your lotus position, you're nice and relaxed, your beads are in your lap, you can hold them however you want, and you have your one bead in your hand, and your eyes are slightly open, you're breathing nice and slow, and then you think of the concept while you're chanting it and really feel it. Know it inside and out as you chant it, and allow it to vibrate through you. So, you can sit here and go, Qing Jing Wei Tiang Xie Zhong, Qing Jing Wei Tiang Xie Zhong, Qing Jing Wei Tiang Xie Zhong, Jing Wei Tiang Xie Zhong Jing Wei Tiang Xie Zhong. Do it as long as you want to. I already feel a little bit more relaxed from doing that. And like I said, you don't have to worry about your voice or how it sounds, because it's just for you, as long as it feels right. And like I said, if you don't want to do it out loud, you can think it in your mind. You can simply say it or speak it. The choice is yours. To extend it a little bit further prior to actually uploading the video, and I wanted to include some of the practices that were associated with Taoism, as well as some of those that were actually invented by Taoists. Some of the practices to help to cultivate the three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen, would be Nidan, Qigong, and Tai Chi Chuan. Tai Chi Chuan was invented by a Taoist, as well as Pakwa, Xingyi, and I Ching Ching postures. Now, they weren't necessarily all created by a Taoist. Tai Chi Chuan was, but Pakwa, Xingyi, and I Ching Ching are all different practices that are done in the internal martial arts with some of the Wudang martial arts as well as the Shaolin martial arts. So I just wanted to include that instead of just meditating, if you're ever interested, you could also look in one of these classes, especially Tai Chi Chuan, which incorporates all of the contemplations and basic visualizations that have to do with yin and yang. All the principles of yin and yang are applied in Tai Chi Chuan if you do it correctly. It's also sometimes pronounced Tai Chi Chuan. So Tai Chi, Tai Chi, it depends on what dialect you're talking about, Cantonese, Mandarin, etc. So once again, there's a little bit more information for you. I just wanted to include that and tack that on the end since it was what looks like 1 minute and 33 seconds. So enjoy. But this is basic introduction to Tao. Please do more research online, read more books, discover it for yourself. If it feels right, practice or include it. If it doesn't feel right, pass it on, look for the next video, look for the next book, look for the next teacher. So I am BlazeLeeDragon, and this is basically Taoism.